I talked too much yesterday, so I'm going to keep this brief. Yesterday I said something about Israelis that they're mean people and blah 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 blah. I feel like everyone that watched it went, "You're anti-Semitic," especially if you're like Chuck Schumer or something like that. And today I noticed the head of the Department of Homeland Security is Jewish, the director of National Intelligence is Jewish, the director of the CIA is Jewish. Everyone that is in a position of power right now is Jewish. I'm pretty sure Adam Schiff was the head of the Intelligence Committee for the House, and Chuck Schumer is the head of the Senate. And so what I'm telling you is Jewish people are all in charge. I need Jewish people to help me. I don't think that's going to happen because Jewish people are so pro-Israel. The reality about Israel is that Israel, number one, kind of forced themselves into this country. They kicked out 2 million Palestinians. I'm talking about Israel. So there was this place called Palestine, and then after World War II, they were given Palestine, and but they weren't given Palestine. They were given certain parts of Palestine, and they kicked out 2 million Palestinians, and most of those people live in Jordan. And that, if you read Osama bin Laden's writings, he'll tell you the reason that he bombed. That the reason that he hates the United States is because the United States supports Israel, and Israel has done such terrible things to Palestinians. When I was in Israel, I went to Ramallah, and this guy Omar was assassinated. They assassinated him in the middle of the street. This guy showed me where it's like they assassinated this guy in the middle of Times Square, right in front of everyone. So they assassinate people all the time in Palestine, even though they don't live there. They're not in charge of Palestine. The PLO or Fatah is in charge of Palestine, or in charge of the West Bank, and Hamas is in charge of Gaza. And I was in the West Bank. Even though Hamas was in charge, or even though the PLO was in charge, they assassinated this guy in the middle of the street. Israel, like at one point in 2007, they just killed tons of civilians in southern Lebanon. They just bombed indiscriminately, didn't care who they were killing. In Gaza, they gave people like 5-minute warnings before they bombed like their houses and stuff. Said, "Get out of your house, we're going to kill you." And then they killed a lot of Palestinians that are innocent. They have their territory, which is Israel, and then there's Palestine. And then what they did is they move Jewish settlers into these very, very nice areas, and they take their water supply. So the Palestinians need water for farming. And what the Israelis have done is they move these people in, and they have like swimming pools and big fancy fountains and stuff like that. And the reason they do that is because they've moved so many Israelis into Israel and Palestine, because anybody who's Jewish can move to Israel anytime they want. But Israel's overpopulated. Like it's not meant to have that many people living there, and so they can't use they don't have enough fresh water. So what they do is desalinate water. So Israel is actually a very inefficient country from a energy perspective. Like they consume way more energy per capita than anyone else in the Middle East. Like not even close. Israel's bad for the environment, but like the settlers that move into Israel, like people talk to me while I was there, and they're like, in Hebron, what they do is the settlers will live upstairs and they'll dump trash onto the Palestinians as they walk by. And they're constantly mean to them. And if you talk to them, they're the most racist people in the world. Anybody who's not Jewish is inferior to them. You have to be Jewish. And if you're not Jewish, then you're inferior. And I'm just saying, like, we, white people that are not Jewish, are inferior to them. I know what you're thinking. You're Jewish. Jesus was Jewish, blah, 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 blah. And what I'll tell you is we're the beginning of the Jewish people. And the Jewish people now are not who the Jewish people were when my clones were Jewish. And so all I'm saying is I don't think that, I mean, I even think the Department of Homeland Security head is not, like, he's not a radical Jewish person. Like, probably Janet Yellen is a lot more Jewish than, like, she's in charge of the Treasury. So, like, I'm just saying, like, Jewish people are, like, they have managed to be in charge of everything. And I think what happened is Joe Biden wanted people in charge that had the most radical anti-me view. And so he has picked people that really despise me. I know it's kind of weird that he would say that about the Treasury Secretary, that I'd say that about the Treasury Secretary, but she's in the know. She knows what's going on. She's known what's going on for a long time. And that's why she's intervening in markets so much that some people are going, how is this market possible? And it's not. I mean, unless it's fraudulent. And the real thing is, can the Treasury Secretary prop up the entire economy by herself, combined with the Fed? We'll see what happens. So I mean, it seems like Catholic people have taken over more than Jewish people, but that's not in every case. Like Catholic people are in charge of the Supreme Court. Like it's like what, like 6 out of 9 or 7 out of 9 people are Catholic, and then there are 2 Jewish people on the Supreme Court. And everyone's from Harvard, basically, except for Amy Coney Barrett, who's Catholic, who's from Notre Dame now. But what I'm telling you is, if you went to Israel and you experienced what I experienced, and you also experienced the wall and the way, like these people, they can drive for like 12 miles, and then there's a checkpoint, and they're not allowed to leave their checkpoint. Like they're all in a very large jail, which. Join the club. I'm kind of in a large jail, except I drive more than 12 miles all the time, like especially when I need to go drop off these letters. So when I say what I say about Israel and you're like, oh, I love Israel, I'm a Christian, Israel's the best. Israel does terrible, terrible things to people, like to Christians, because I'm telling you, like the Palestinians, a lot of them are Christians. Like there are no Christians in Israel. Like there's no Mormon temple in Israel. Israel is I mean, you have to experience it, like, and you have to experience it with an understanding of the situation. And until you experience it, then you won't understand. Like these Israelis are so religious; they think they care so much about this one piece of land. When I don't care about the land at all. You want to talk about the person that built the land, or my clones built the land, my people built the land. My people built Israel, or built Jerusalem, not Israel. Israel now is like way more built than it was, but. My people built Jerusalem, and you know what? I don't think I'm entitled to it. You know why? Because I don't care. Because I'd rather live in California. I'd rather live somewhere nice. But these people are so obsessed with living in a certain place that they will murder people a lot for it. And Benjamin Netanyahu has won so many elections in a row, and I'm just saying that guy is an extremely radical religious nut. And there are very different types of Jews, and I'm just saying, like, some Jews are radical religious nuts, and those people tend to get ahead.